Welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about higher order functions and arrays in JavaScript. Okay, to get started, I've opened up Visual Studio Code. I've got Quokka on the right hand side, which is just going to log the output, and then I've got some dummy users at the very top. So we're going to be talking about for each, filter, map, reduce, sort, and finally at some point we'll combine some or all of these together. So let's get started with for each. For each allows us to loop over an array, and for each item it'll allow us to perform some action. So what we can say is users, and we're referencing the users array up here, dot for each, and note the capital E. I'm going to get some parentheses, and then I'm going to pass a callback function. So that callback function is what we're going to do for each item in here. So first of all, we need to tell how are we referencing each item within the array. Well, we've got a users, so I want each item to be called user. So now it's going to loop over, and it'll go to the first item, then it'll loop back round, it'll go to the second item, loop back round, go to the third item, and each time we are going to reference each row or each item within the array as user. So then I can say, well, console.log user, and we should get the exact same output as if we was to just console log users, and we do over here. So we've got one item, then we loop it over, we get the next item, then we loop over and we get the next item. And then we can go a little bit further. We can say, well, actually, let's just console log the age. So we get 21, then we'll get 16, and then we'll get 22, and so on. Now, we can actually deconstruct this because we know the items that we're going to extract off the object. What I can say is actually I just want the age, or let's just say the surname from the user. So I'm going to use some curly brackets, and I'm going to take off out of this object the surname. So now user is not defined because we're not referencing the user. We've literally just pulled out just the surname. So what I can say here now is actually just reference the surname. And if that's the case, if all we're doing on a single line is returning something on a single line, then we can again take this back further and delete these curly brackets and put it onto a single line. Next, let's move on to filter. So what filter will do is it will return a new array based on the argument or the test that we give it. So for example, let's say if we want to let's return all of the females in our user object. So I'm going to say let females is equal to users, again because we're referencing the users up at the top, filter, and then we're going to get a callback function again, and I'm going to say this every item is referenced as user, and I'm going to say if user dot gender is equal to female, then let's return true. So now what we've got is we'll have some elements in here which have passed this argument, this test. The test is if the users are female. So what we should have is just two users, which are ID 3 and ID 5. You know, I should have made them names that I can pronounce. Let's console.log females, and what we'll get is an array of two users which are both female. So basically we'll loop over the items again, and we'll put in some form of test, and then it'll create a new array for it. And again, we can go a little bit further and we can deconstruct this because we know what we're going to be testing. So we're going to be testing the gender. So let's just pull that off into an individual variable, so we'll get the exact same response. So we're not dealing with the whole object. And again, we can actually trim this down even further because we're only doing a single line return here. And what we can say is let's get rid of this, let's get rid of return true, and just return it if gender is female. So we get the exact same response again, but now we've trimmed our lines from 3, 4, 5 lines down to a single line, and we get a new array with all of the females. Next, let's move on to map. So I'm just going to comment this out. And map is very similar to filter in that it's going to create a new array with our results. So let's say map is equal to users, and again I'm going to reference the users object, and then I'm going to map over it. It would help if I put an equals, and then again I'm going to get a callback function. I think you might be seeing a pattern here, and then I'm going to say, well, actually each item is user, and then I'm going to let's return the user.age times 2. So now if we console logged the map variable here, what we'll get is 42, 32, 44, 110, and then 32. So double 21 is 42, double 16 is 32, double 22 is 44, and so on. So we can, again, we can keep on refactoring this, so we can drill down a little bit more. So we can say, well, actually, let's just extract age. And again, because we're only on a single line, because there's not any more, complex functionality, we can just say, actually, let's just return age times 2, and we get the exact same result. Next, we're going to move on to reduce, and I'm just going to leave this map variable available to us, because what we're going to do is it allows us to reduce down an array of numbers and get a total outcome. So, for example, if I said let reduced is equal to map, so I'm referencing our numbers here, which returned all of the ages, times 2. I'm going to say map.reduce, and again a callback function. However, this time what it's going to do is it's going to take in 2 parameters, and what we'll do is we'll say total age and current. So what we want to do is we want to return total age plus current, and we need to give it a default value to start off with, so otherwise it will have this weird issue. Basically, you need to say start off at 0. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say console.log, and let's just say reduced, and we're going to get 260, and I'm just going to assume that that's correct, but feel free to to challenge the computer. But again, so what's quite common is you'll see, because these parameters can be just used and be anything, you'll see A and B, and sometimes that's actually hard to diagnose and understand what's going on here. But essentially it's just taking the total and the current of what's of whatever it is that you're reducing. And again, because we're doing this on a single line, this can be reduced. We can reduce the reducer even further, so we can say, actually, let's take these away and return a plus b, and then we'll just put a comma to say, like, actually remember to start at 0, and we still get the exact same output. So I'm going to go ahead and just comment these out. So let's move on to sort, and we're going to start by saying, actually, let's just stick with convention and say let's sort by age. So let's sort our, oh, that's not how you spell age. We're going to sort all of our users in the order of their age. So I'm going to say users dot sort, and then again a callback function. And what this is going to do is going to take in 2 parameters again, so A and B. So just like last time, we can name these whatever we want. And what I'm going to say is, if A.age is greater than B.age, then I want to return 1. Otherwise, I want to return -1. And what that's basically saying is, if it's greater than the age that you're looping over, then you basically order it. And that's how this is how it orders it, with a 1 and a -1. So if we say console.log sort by age, what we'll get is 16, 16, 21, 22, and 55. And if we look at our array up at the top, we actually start with 21, go down to 16, 22, 55, 16. So this is sorted by array by age. And I've said every single time, but again, we can filter this down, because this can be done on a single line, and it just looks a lot cleaner. So what I'm going to say is A age greater than B age, then we want to do something. So we want to return a 1, otherwise we want to return a -1. And then I'm going to get rid of all of this here, and what we'll do is we'll get the exact same output. So A age greater than B age, return a 1, otherwise return a -1, and then it orders our array. Let's move on to the final one, which is combined. So these are really powerful tools to us as as part of our developers arsenal, but they can also be joined on together to create some really extensive tools. So as an example, let's just say let combined, and this is going to be equal to users. Let's map over the ages. So convention is to knock it down onto a new line just for readability purposes, and I'm going to say map over the user and return user.age times 2. Okay, so what we're getting here is console.log combined is the exact same experience as what we've got a little bit higher above. So we've got 42, 32, 44. So we've just basically joined on the so we've just doubled everyone's age. So what we can do here is we can actually say, well, let's filter out some of these users, and I'm going to say age, and let's filter out anyone anyone whose age is greater than 42. Oh, greater than 42, it'd help if I typed it. So 44 and 110. So the only two people which have got an age which is doubled and greater than 42 are these two here. And then what we can do is we can actually say, let's reduce this. Let's calculate it. So let's reduce, and let's take in A and B, and we're going to return A plus B, and then we're going to start at 0. So what we get is 154. You know what? Let's just make sure. What did we get? 44 and 110. We add that in, we get 154. So what we've done here is we've actually joined on some of these methods to create a really powerful tool that's doubled everyone's age. We've stripped anyone out who's younger than 42, and then we've calculated the total age. So the only two people, the combined age right now is 154. So that's everything, guys. Thanks very much for watching.